Hey yogis, Sadie Nardini here at Yoga Works in New York City where I teach. Today I've gotten a lot of questions about full wheel and what's anatomically best. How do we set up for the pose? How do we come into the pose? And for God's sakes, how do we get back down out of this thing? So know that full wheel is a very, very deep back bend. Upward facing dog also. Sometimes we rush towards these poses without realizing how intense they are and how much setup they really need. So you don't want to be rocking a full wheel in the first third of class. You want to definitely be warmed up. That's another reason we wait till the end of class, because we want to make really sure that your body is prepared. So please promise me you'll do about 3 to 5 or more core sun salutations or a similar vinyasa flow before you even attempt this stuff, okay? All right, thanks. So one thing about wheel is the breath cue is sometimes reversed. And also the neck spine, the little bird bones of our neck, cervical spine area, don't need to be taking all the pressure we put on them when we constantly stop by the crown of the head. That's a position for the neck that tends to hyperextend it like this and put pressure here and move out the front of the bone. So we're over curving the head when we do that, and then the body pressure is there, and ew, we don't want to do that anymore. So anatomically, some of the things we've been taught can be damaging, and we're seeing that turn up in a lot of herniations and disc injuries and stuff. So with that thing, okay? So I want you to trust that you're going to get strong enough to be able to come up without the head stopping there, that you can switch the breath cue from what you may have learned to make it safer for that low back, more support, and that you can be humble enough to work this and repeat it until that weird, wacky position of your arms helps your arms get stronger in that certain way. And it's just going to take time if you're new to this pose. If you're old hat, you'll find this very interesting, I think, because you can switch to these directions and feel the difference instantly. All right, so here we go. So, of course, we can prepare for this pose by doing bridge pose a few times. Before we even begin, something I like to do with my classes is to take the 2-block bridge. Let me see if I can grab a couple of blocks here. 1, 2. All right, so if you're not a big back bender, you might just want 1 block. But otherwise, we're going to place 1 or 2 blocks. Come to lie down and then lift the hips and place these 2 blocks just right underneath your hips. So again, if you're used to back bending, 2 blocks should feel okay. You're going to give yourself nice traction for the spine here and help that low back get some space. So before we move and curl it, we want to get some length between it so we're not jamming as we're lifting up. This will make a huge difference in your pose, you'll see. Widen your feet about as wide as the mat, and just drop the knees towards one another. They don't have to touch, but just drop them in. Bring your arms overhead, maybe hang on to a wrist or elbows or reach, and begin to breathe. So as you inhale, breathe into the belly, expand front, sides, and back, releasing and relaxing the hips. And on your exhale, press out, pelvic floor squeezes, low pit of the belly squeezes, abdominal squeeze. So inhale, make space through the lungs, through the belly. Exhale, contract. Press the air out from underneath the lungs. And a couple more like that. You can pause between the breaths so you don't get all dizzy being here. And then when you're done, walk your feet together. You want to curl the tailbone up, ignite the belly, remove the blocks out to the side. And you should feel a little space, like your back wants to curve right now. Now we're going to take our full wheel and give it what it wants. All right, so we're going to plant the hands, listen carefully, by the ears, not like pressing and jamming under here by the shoulders. If you do that, look at where my elbows are. They're way back. They're back behind the wrists. So if you try to press there, if I try to do that, there's no way, I can't even get up like that because the physics is wrong and all the pressure is coming out through the elbows. You're losing so much power that way. I don't know where that direction got started, but anatomically it's depleted. So we're going to take the hands from this under the shoulder thing, back a little bit, beside the ears. Now the elbow is going to come directly over the wrist, perpendicular to the floor. So sticking straight up from the floor. That's what you want. One hand, two hands. Now again, I already told you about the neck in this pose, so we're not going to stop by the head. We've got to set it up in advance, and you can do that when you're ready for the pose. So we're going to inhale, arch the back a little bit. Exhale, curl the tailbone up, igniting the belly. Press into the feet and let that wave move you up. Now as your elbows are bent and you're moving up, squeeze the shoulder blades back a little bit. That's good. So you can come up perfectly anatomically set. If you'd like to walk in a little bit, lift your heels to release any low back tension. Curl the tailbone more. And then you really want to press that rib cage out through the arms and draw the arms back onto the back. Shake your head and neck out. Flutter the lips. And breathe. Okay, if you can drop the heels without back pain, that's good. You want to keep the tailbone tucking down and keep some length. So tailbone is rooting like it's on a block, right? Hips are there, then you want to pull away from it. It's a traction. Now to come down, you want to keep those elbows over the wrist. Otherwise, again, you'll lose power. You want to curl the tailbone. I lift the heels, curl the tailbone, and draw the head in. Keep those elbows over the wrist. And come down the way you came, and here you are, okay? So that is not an easy way up or down. When you're finished, you want to take a moment. Because it's not easy, you don't want to go right into it again. We're going to just be here, let the back be a little contracted, and squeeze the wrists. If you don't know the magic wrist clear, please watch the video for that. Save my wrists from practice. That was kind of hard on, any practice is hard on the wrist. Anytime we do these arm balances and stuff, it can compress, so you want to make sure you know it. So after all that stuff in your practices, you can open it up before anything happens. All right, so you can try that a couple more times with the exhale. So when you come up, we inhale first, remember? And then we exhale to come up. Why? Because that wraps your abdominal muscles and back muscles around the low back spine, which is now a little bit open and contracted in the back, open in the front like we want it to be for this pose. So it kind of freezes you there. It gives you some support as you start to curl up and lift, right? So you don't want to freeze it in a super arch, but you just want to let that arch tell it what's going to happen, and then curl in and support it as it moves up to make that happen. And the exhale anatomically is so strongly supported. If you inhale, you have no support for that low back spine, and you're going to get strained there over time. So we want to make sure we exhale to come up. All right, to counter pose, you can cross one knee over the other. Take your arms nice and long, scoot your hips to the right, and drop the knees gently to the left. So just don't press on the leg. You can lightly rest your hand there. But just get a nice, long moment of breath here, gentle on the body, let it release. Let it realize you're not doing a back bend anymore. Okay, other side. So each of these, maybe take 5 or 10 breaths in them. Nice twisting from one side to another. Take the breath all the way down to the belly so you can release any tension here in that low back area. And then always, of course, end with a neutralizing position, something that's centered. I like to just gently hug the knees over the hips a little bit, relax the hip creases, and press down through the length of the legs. I'm hanging onto my kneecaps, and I'm pressing down so the femur bones, thigh bones root into the hip sockets a little more deeply, and the iliopsoas muscles and hip muscles, flexors, can start to release here in the hip crease area. So you allow yourself to let go. And then perhaps a little happy baby. Keep your hips on the floor while you do this. None of this, that's just going to cause more strain to the low back. So just keep the hips down, even if you're here, breathing, or hanging onto the calves. And then a little rock and roll, coming up to sit, or doing whatever you do to end the practice. I hope you found that informative in your practice, and that you can use that to open and revolutionize all of your back bending. Thank you so much. Let me know how it goes, and have a wonderful practice. Namaste.